Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to our sixth Michigan Investor Group meeting, or MIG. Tonight we're going to be learning about a specific niche of real estate, self-storage facilities. And very thankful we have a great speaker and hopefully some good discussion and good learning. First off, I just want to go over a couple items. Bathrooms. If you need to use restroom, it's kind of down back where you entered the building at. So just kind of backtrack there and you'll find the restrooms. And as we always discuss, this is a pretty casual place, so please feel free to grab another bottle of water or grab another, wrap if you'd like during our time. I just wanted to highlight a couple things. I wanted to just let you know about the website. If any of you, I'm not sure if anybody is really aware of this, but we do have a website, and probably the most useful area is the blog, which you get to just by clicking on that blog button, obviously. And what I wanted to highlight is when you go to the blog, you can see our upcoming events and our past events with some information and a video included for each of those past events in case you wanted to check them out. And then I really wanted to just speak for a moment about our next MIG meeting. Even though we have one tonight, I want to just highlight our next MIG meeting, which is August 28th. If there's one thing that I believe has been probably the most impactful thing I've learned in the last 2.5, 3 years, it's been this topic. High cash value life insurance. And so I strongly encourage you to consider doing some self-education, possibly. And I list a couple books on the site and on the blog page here that I recommend. And I'll even, if you email me, send me your mailing address, I will send you Live Your Life Insurance. Probably half of you already have it because I've already probably given it to you. But seriously, if you're interested and you want to just dive in a little bit, send me your mailing address and I will send you Live Your Life Insurance. And then if you're still interested, I list becoming your own banker and then building your own privatized banking system. So again, and no matter what you think about life insurance, I just encourage you to keep an open mind, and I encourage you to just check it out and hopefully come back on August 28th. Okay, enough on that. So we'll have Tim's presentation after this little intro, and then we'll have a Q&A session if there's some Q&A, and then we'll have time just to hang out and network if you'd like afterwards. We should be wrapped up by 7:30 or 8 at the latest. And about Tim. So Tim Puffer is a real estate investor, and he will tell us a lot more about his background and what areas of real estate he's been involved in and what he's focusing on now, and why he chose to dive into self-storage. And how I met Tim, question. Well, some of you who know me, I listen to podcasts quite a bit. And so I was listening to a podcast at the corner gas station probably about a year ago. And there's this podcast called How to Lose Money is the podcast. And they basically interview people about a lesson they've learned in their investing life. And Tim was a guest on that podcast. And I was like, this guy's from Lansing? Oh, I got to get a hold of this guy. And next thing you know, we're developed a little bit of a friendship. And I'm very much looking forward to Tim's presentation. So welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for coming, everybody. You all must live boring lives if you're here to talk, hear me talk about metal buildings. So thank you for that. All right, so I'm Tim Puffer with Focus Real Estate Investing. I have my background. I have a degree in insurance and risk management from Olivet College, not too far away from here. I've been an insurance agent, an underwriter, marketing rep. So I've done that for 6-7 years in my career. Lived in Michigan my whole life. Love Michigan. Don't plan to ever leave. Although winters make me want to sometimes, but it can still be great here. Detroit Lions fan, for better or for worse. Huge NFL fan in general. and have my wife here, Mara, and we have 2 cats and a collie together. So we stay pretty busy with them. So I obtained my real estate license about 4 years ago after reading Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I said, hey, we should get some real estate, get involved with that to have a little income outside of a regular job. And it's funny, our first look into real estate investing, we wanted to flip a mobile home because I had lived in them my whole life, grew up living in them, and so we were going to buy a foreclosed one in Lansing, live in it, flip it, and hopefully keep doing that. So we decided not to do that. It was a little too risky, so we ended up moving to Lansing and searched for duplexes. And we had to have looked at 60, 70 duplexes that were on the market, and none of them made sense. Had too many things wrong with them, price was too high, things like that. And so we sent out some letters to owners unsolicited and found one off market, and we ended up purchasing that one. And it needed a little bit of work, but the price was right on it. And so we moved into one side and renovated the other side. I did that every day after work. I was still working an insurance job and underwriting, so I'd get home at 5, go work on that side for 3, 4, 5 hours, go to bed, do it again, and it took about 3 months to finish that one. And we actually found red shag carpet under the dishwasher. It was pretty nasty. You can run into that sometimes with some of these older homes. So did that. Duplex, was going great. In May of 2017, we had water backup on the rented side, and so tenants were not happy. Obviously, had to rip up the flooring that I laid myself down there, and tenants were just not great. So got everything taken care of. We're waiting for flooring to be laid, and we go to a real estate conference in Cleveland and get a call from the tenants. And they say, I'm not happy, I'm not paying rent, this is ridiculous, it's taking so long. And I say, hold on, contractors are busy, everything's taken care of, you can go down there, it's perfectly clean, we're just waiting for tile to be laid. So calm them down, and I'm just like, I don't know if I'm going to do any more duplexes or anything like that. And we were thinking about getting into apartment building investing. And just so happened the next speaker, we were in between sessions there, the next speaker was on self-storage. And so he starts, and my wife nudges me, she's like, hey, we should do this. Listen to your wives, they know best. And I'm like, thought about it, heard the speaker, finish up, and I'm like, it's very similar to apartments. It's just a different asset class. You value them similarly. It's just a different niche. And so I bought the guy's course and took off from there. Started reaching out to industry professionals to learn more. Started calling owners unsolicited to see if they want to sell. And we ended up finding one to purchase, which I'm going to talk about here in a little bit. But first, I wanted to talk about the self-storage industry in general. So it's pretty large, as you can see, a $38 billion industry. You wouldn't think metal buildings, things like that would be that large, but it's very, very big. Different estimates between a couple of different sources, between 45,000 and 52,000 total facilities. And what's interesting about that is only the REITs, so these large operators down here, Public Storage, Extra Space, CubeSmart, some places you guys may have heard of, they only own 27% of the market. So there's a huge number of facilities out there that are people who own 1, 2, 3 facilities, and they're good with that. So there's a huge opportunity to buy existing facilities out there from a lot of owners who are getting near retirement age and are going to want to offload it in the near future. So 9.4% of all households rent a storage unit, and that number continues to go up. In America, we love our stuff. Amazon makes it super easy to just sit on your butt and order whatever you want. So it's climbing, which is very interesting. There are a number of other operators in the country that own 1, 2, 300 facilities, but still that total number is only 27% of the market. So these are a couple photos of our facility that I'm going to talk about that we ended up purchasing. So we got it's in DeWitt, Michigan, just north of Lansing. We got it under contract in October of 2017. So what is that? 3-4 months after I had initially started learning about it. And we ended up closing on it January of 2018. So we've owned it a little over a year now. So like I said, we found it. I just called the owners, asked them straight up if they were interested in selling. Because in my mind, everything's for sale. You just got to connect with the person at the right time and come up with the right price. So went through contract negotiations, and we got under contract for $1.3 million. And why we liked it, DeWitt's kind of a nice bedroom community just outside of Lansing. Great schools. The population is good for a more rural community, 23,000 people. And the median household income is $70,000, which is pretty strong. The higher the income, obviously, the more the higher the rate you can get. So with that high of a average income, you can get good rates. As there are facilities out there where the incomes are low and the rates are low, and you might not necessarily be able to meet the returns that you want. And if you want to expand, the cost of construction makes it as such where it doesn't make sense. Feel free to ask any questions during this. We don't have to save it for the end. I'm more than happy to answer them if something pops up, guys. Market rates there were strong. They were actually $86 is what we're charging right now for a 10x10. They were less than that when we took over the property, which I'll talk about here. So pre-purchase, the owner's mom and pop owner. I've owned it for almost 20 years. They're running it the way they think is necessary, what's worked for them. So they were doing billing on 4x6 index cards, credits and debits every month, and they were there from 9 to 5 every day. And the average traffic for a storage facility is only 7 cars per day. It's super minimal. There's no reason to be there that much. Rates were below market. They were $20 to $30 below market on their rates with some of their units. And that screams nice value add opportunity going into it. And there's room for expansion, 1 acre room for expansion, where that office building and that pole barn there, that's an acre area. So it's a nice room for expansion on it. So since we purchased it, they didn't have a website either. So we got a website going where customers can go on, rent a unit, and put all their information in, get their gate code, go into their unit, and they don't have to talk to a person if they don't want to. And that's just a result of the way the world is going. They can go on their cell phone and rent a unit, and not have to. I'd gotta say half our customers we've rented to in the past year or so we haven't talked to at all. They're just on auto pay, and it comes out of their account on a monthly basis. So we implemented the website, proper management system that tracks occupancies, and it tracks our rates for us, so we can adjust our rates based on occupancy. Yes.
Was that some of the material you got from the course you bought from that?
Was what the
efficiency website managerial system?
So there wasn't anything in there on that. So the course was good in that it gave you enough to get started, but it didn't fill in all the blanks, because with any of those courses you got to take action on it and figure out things for yourself. And so that was me just reaching out to people in the industry, looking up self-storage websites and management systems, and coming up with the companies. There's a handful of companies that do a great job at them, and we demoed quite a few of them. Yes?
What company did you go with?
StoreEdge, which is now Storable, along with SiteLink. SiteLink is another property management company in the industry, a very large company. And there's a lot of good companies out there that do it. There's Easy Storage Solutions, and they're one of the lesser expensive ones. And they have a really good platform if you have a smaller facility and you don't want to pay the premium dollars.
What it costs for you to upgrade the technology to get to that point?
StoreEdge for us, when we got it, their prices have gone up because of the merger, of course. So we got it for $150 a month, and it was $75 for the website and $75 for the management system. I think their prices are now, it's based on number of units. I'm trying to remember. I have a contact at the company if you'd like. He's a real good guy. I can get you that number specifically.
Is that required for anybody that comes to you? They have to do it through the website?
They can call it. No, they can call in and rent a unit as well. And with us living so close, we do. If somebody wants to see the unit before they move in, we'll go out there and show it to them. You know, we're not robots or anything. We like talking to people too. You know, if they really want to see somebody. That's the thing. Most people just if they can do it on their phone, move right in with no issues, then they'll do it. But we're actually when I talk about, let's move on to the expansion. So with that, we're going to do it a little bit more simply. We're going to paint unit sizes on the asphalt to show people how large they are. That way they can get a sense of how big they are, because that's one of the number one questions. How big is the unit? Well, it's 10 foot by 10 foot. How big is that? And it wasn't taught in school, maybe, I don't know. We were going to do a display unit where we would have, because they have portable units, where you'd have just like a big metal container. It would have a roll-up door on it, and we could have the unit sizes taped off. But it was going to be $15,000 to do that, and I figured we could just, with the size of our facility, we don't need to spend that. If we were 500 units, somewhere in there, then it might be worth it to do that for off-hours type situations. So on the expansion, we're going to be tearing down that office and pole barn, just because having storage buildings is much better. We don't have to deal with the commercial tenants and trying to refill those. We actually, on the larger units on our office, 2,100 square foot space, that had been listed since last September and had no hits on it to release it out. So it just didn't make sense to keep that office space there. And the gross rent is much different. It was $36,000 on the office pole barn and $135,000 adding the storage buildings. Pretty easy math. Pretty easy math. The construction's going to cost about $730,000 for the 2 additional buildings, for the site work and stormwater management there, the new buildings, new gate system, things like that. And if anybody has questions on the specific cost of that stuff, let me know. I can dive into that too. So we're adding 15,200 additional square feet. It'll get us about 92 additional units, so we'll be up to 100 or 280 units, and we'll be up to 42,000 square feet. And the benefit of being a larger facility is that you start to get looked at by some of those larger operators I was talking about, who own 50, 100 facilities. And having a larger facility, those places are willing to pay a higher price than if it was smaller and nothing was done to it. So that's kind of the plan, to be set up for that. Once we get it leased up, have one of those guys say, hey, we're going to pay you, X amount of dollars, and potentially cash out of the deal if it makes sense. Any other questions on the current facility at all?
Yeah, what's your occupancy rate right now?
99%. Yeah.
That's the advantage.
Do you think this was a really nice property to cut teeth on, or?
Oh, it was great property. I mean, just the negotiations with, the sellers looking to retire. Both of them were in their 70s, and you're trying to do a commercial transaction, the proper way it's supposed to be handled, with addendums if need be. And I'd introduce an addendum, and they'd just light me on fire, just like I was trying to change the whole deal when it was common course to do. And I'd tell them, hey, go back to your CPA, go to your attorney, let them review it. We don't have to do anything right now. And they'd come back, okay, yeah, that sounds good. So it was great for that. Great in the fact that it was a nice value add property and getting experience, raising rates, and raising rates. We raised rates $20-$30, and we had one move out of 188 units. So it was a good experience with regards to that stuff.
Maybe you're going to cover it, but what was the ROI when you purchased it?
When we purchased it,
Yeah.
I guess in cap rate, cash on cash, cap rate.
Yeah.
We purchased at a 9 cap, based on their numbers. So right now, what's that?
Were their numbers accurate?
They actually were pretty good. They gave us everything we needed, which was real nice. I thought when we initially got into the transaction, they were going to be pretty, hold that stuff back a little bit. But they gave us the numbers, and they were spot on. We went through all the lease agreements, and everything was accurate. They kept decent records on people with driver's licenses and having leases signed. And with the 4x6 index cards, I mean, they had years of 4x6 index cards, just accurately filled out. So we were able to go off that as well. The value right now at an 8 cap, which is low, we're actually getting into appraised right now. So I'm hoping we get a 7.5 or 7 cap.
If you started at 9 cap, when you did the efficiencies implemented, do you know how much that increased your return on your?
So yeah, I was just going to talk about that. So right now, our value at an 8 cap, I see it to be, we'll see what the appraiser says, because they're probably going to be different. I see it at 1.8 million, and that's without the income from the office and pole barn, just because we've increased the rents on the storage units themselves.
You bought it for 1.1, right?
1.3. Yep, 1.3. Yep, so it's.
How did you finance it?
We've got 80. What's that?
Seller financing?
No, I tried getting seller financing. They wanted their money. The day we closed, they drove down to Florida. they wanted out. So no, we got 80% LTV loan, 4.75%, 10-year term, 20-year amortization. So pretty good loan there. Yeah, our occupancy is 99%. I want to hit that again, which is why we're building more buildings.
How many properties did you contact before you had this one on the hook?
I think I contacted, it was about 50. It wasn't that many. So there's 1,500 facilities in the state of Michigan. So there's quite a few.
Are there virtual services like insurance and things like that?
Yeah, there's tons. I mean, there's doing the boxes. You can sell locks. We actually do the tenant insurance. We do have that. We have right now, I think 15% of our customers signed up for that. So, and that's they pay $9 per month, and the owner operator of the storage facility gets 40% commission on that. So, I mean, it looks small, but if you have a good number of your customers signed up for that hits right at the bottom line, because it costs nothing to really administer that. It's just they sign up for it.
Did they have that when you bought it?
They didn't. They didn't have any products or anything like that. No tenant insurance, nothing like that. So we only do the tenant insurance, and that's just our model. We want it. We don't want to worry about U-Haul trucks or anything like that, because with that, you almost need a part-time manager there, which they're actually doing working on a system now to where you don't need anybody there, where the customer looking to rent the unit will basically FaceTime a U-Haul rep and walk around the truck, make sure everything's okay. They'll take a picture of a driver's license, and then there will be a lockbox where they'll get a code. Off they go. So, huh? U-Haul is. U-Haul is. Well, I was saying that's one of the highest costs at any business is employees. And give you an example of, I would love to pay somebody $40,000 a year to sit at my facility. There's just not enough to do. There's just not enough to do. I did some work on my duplex. We needed to move some appliances. I went to a storage facility nearby to rent a dolly from U-Haul. The guy was sitting there watching The Office on his PlayStation 4. Why am I going to pay somebody to do that? There's no need to do that, unfortunately. Now, at my place, it doesn't make sense. If you have a 3-4 story all climate control facility in Rochester, Michigan, or downtown Detroit, those ones it can make sense to have a full-time manager, because there's enough to do. They're selling a bunch of products. They're doing U-Haul trucks. They're cleaning units. They're doing a bunch of stuff. But at a facility like my place, it just there's not enough things to do for a manager.
So what are the downsides? I mean, you've got, sounds like you just sit back and cash checks, but there's
gotta be some downsides.
Auctioning people's stuff off, which is easier than dealing with landlord-tenant laws. And if you own a duplex or an apartment building, I mean, the eviction process can be lengthy, and you might get your apartment unit back just completely trashed. State of Michigan, I can have somebody out in 65 days on auction. Person comes in who won the auction, comes picks their stuff up. I sweep. We actually leaf blow the unit out now rather than sweep, a little bit quicker, and we re-rent it. So downsides. Trying to think here. I mean, people back into the buildings occasionally. They're, huh? Grumpy customers. That's everything. That's everything, though. Get it. Somebody who doesn't want to.
So do you have cameras?
Oh yeah, definitely. We have cameras around the whole facility. Yeah, the owners only had one old analog camera when we bought the place, and so we decided to put updated cameras around the place. So
Do you have any climate control?
we don't have any climate control units. We will after this. It will. The plan is after we get the new buildings leased up to a certain point, I'm going to look for some land to put some climate control buildings up to introduce that to the market.
Any hazardous waste issues?
No, we haven't had any at all. In our lease, it says, don't, start a meth lab or anything like that, or do, store any gasoline, things like that. But we have a separate environmental liability policy for those purposes, because if something did happen, your traditional commercial insurance policy may not cover that stuff. So if you have a separate policy, you can definitely protect yourself a little bit better. And it's super cheap. It's like $300 a year for the separate pollution liability policy. Very reasonable.
So it's only been like a year and a half. Any crazy issues with roof leaks or any other building maintenance issues? And I'll knock wood.
Yeah. So our buildings are going to 20 years old now, and their Tracti is one of the big manufacturers in the industry, very well known, very great buildings, and we have standing seam roofs on the buildings. So there's no screws in the middle. It's not screwed on roofs. There's no screws at all. And the way they're fastened up by the header is that the screws are outside of the track there. So if there were a leak to happen where those screws are, it's going to be outside of the units anyway. So no building maintenance issues as far as integrity goes.
Do they publish a rated life on the buildings?
Tracti?
Yeah.
I haven't looked at that specifically. I know they have I believe 40-year warranty on the paint, but I mean it's metal, and so they should last for quite a long time. I mean, I've seen pretty old facilities in rural spots that are 40 years old, and they still look pretty decent.
What's the barrier to entry in the market? What if somebody sets a place up right next to you?
We have somebody half a mile up the road who's adding another 40 units, and he's full, and then we have another guy down the road who's full as well. So we need to raise rates too, in addition to adding the new units. Storage is so interesting that you can have. I just went down to Cincinnati this past week with my general contractor, and he's been in storage for 20 years. And we were looking at a potential conversion site, taking an old building and converting it to self-storage. There's 11 facilities in a 3-mile radius, and everybody is full, and rates are strong, which are general indications of there being more room. More storage can be added to a market. So that's kind of what you look for. If everybody was at 80% occupancy, you don't want to build there. But if everybody's 95+% full, rates are strong. And when I say rates are strong, I generally like to see $80 a month for a 10x10 non-climate unit, and then I will get interested in a market on top of occupancy being good.
So when you're saying that rates are strong, or I assume with the software, there's probably an add-on module they can pay for to look at market?
Competitor rates?
Yeah.
You just call them, mystery shop them. My wife does that. She loves doing that. Yeah, just call them and find out their rates. You ask them, hey, I'm looking to, myself and my family are looking for some units, wondering what your rates are. you get the information, or more and more people are starting to go to some of the more robust websites where the rates will be posted online. You just go online, look at the rates there as well. So it's you can get that information pretty easily. And the check occupancy, a lot of mom and pop owners will tell you their occupancy when you call them. Or you could go and try to rent a unit, mystery shop again, and have them give you a tour of the facility, and you just look how many units don't have locks on them, and that'll give you a general sense of the occupancy as well.
What are your thoughts on like boat or RV storage, and is that a different animal, or?
It's similar in the fact that you still want to look for, higher rates and what occupancies are, so you do the same thing and, go try to mystery shop somebody to get a sense of their occupancy.
But I mean, in terms of operating a facility.
Oh, yeah.
Because you don't have really, they're not covered. And I've seen combined ones.
Yeah, you can do both. So I just talked to a friend of mine. He's a self-storage feasibility expert, and he owns facilities himself, and him and his brother are getting ready to build just all boat and RV storage down in Florida. That's all they're doing. Some will be covered, some will be uncovered. It's going to be unmanned facility. People will be able to go online, rent their spot. And that's it. It'll be similar. Say, hey, I want unit A1, pay $100 a month, enter driver's license information, insurance policy information, and they'll be able to get their gate code, pull right into their spot. And
They tend to do like the same square foot market rate, or is it? Yeah.
so generally, you're going to get more per square foot for having the actual storage unit, the buildings. Depends on the market, though. Depends on the market you're in. You might be able to get more for boat RV than you would for doing the buildings, and it can cost less, obviously, to just paint a parking spot. And if you get the land cheap enough, you can do boat and RV parking, even if the rates aren't that high. If you have just extra land in between buildings, you can do boat and RV storage to get some income from that portion until you build your additional buildings.
Back to the overall marketplace.
Yeah.
And this niche in the real estate world, I'm sure, I mean, I don't want to ask you a tough question, but how did self-storage do during 07, 8, 9, 10?
Had lowest default rate. It was 0.5%.
Can you say that again?
Lowest default rate
Out of all real estate?
out of all real estate classes. 0.5%
For loan defaults?
loan defaults, yeah.
So it performed very well?
Yeah, it's recession, nothing's recession proof, but it's recession resistant. And the fact that when recession's doing great, people buy things. When it's doing bad, people downsize and need to move, so they still need to store their stuff. So it works out nice.
What do the demographics look like? Because it seems like younger people are less likely to need stuff that needs to go in a storage unit.
It's funny you say that, but I mean, I'm 30 and I don't see it that way. So a lot of my peers have a ton of stuff in their house and store things and have a lot of stuff to move. I've heard that too. I just don't necessarily see it as a whole. I think
Your tenants then are all.
we have all demographics, and then they need to store stuff. It's cars, it's trailers, it's their stuff. They're moving. They just want their summer or winter stuff stored. Yeah.
What's the average time frame, like?
Length of time?
Yeah.
Last I saw nationally, it was 13 months.
What's the premium on climate-controlled places?
Depends on the market, but generally 25 to 50% over your non-climate rates. So it's pretty good. And the cost to build climate control isn't too much more in general than non-climate. Generally, just hard rule of thumb is I've seen this move and just in building my additional buildings, but depends on site work and stormwater and everything like that. But general rule of thumb is $45 per square foot for non-climate control buildings, and then $60 per square foot for climate control buildings, and that's a gross square foot.
With what you learned over the next 5 to 10 years, do you see yourself moving into the syndication side of it and putting some deals together?
Yeah, absolutely. I have some sites I'm looking at and looking to do some new development, and I think that it would make sense to do that. Definitely, there's a lot of opportunity out there.
You You said it was $1.3 million
Yep.
purchase price, and you got a loan, how much was the loan percent?
It was
How many, what percent of the purchase price was the loan?
80%.
Okay.
Yeah, there's great loan terms out there. Is that what you're asking, just loan
Well,
terms
the
in
other
general?
follow-up is like, where'd you get the 260?
So
Cash to put that down?
it goes back to podcast again. So I listened to the RPOA podcast, and the person who hosts that, I just reached out to him and said, hey, I like your podcast, love to meet you. You know, I'm a young guy who just has a duplex. You know, this guy's not going to meet with me, and he did. And so I built a relationship with him and brought him a couple of deals that I didn't know what to do with, and just he walked through it with me. Then I got into self-storage and found this facility, and I went to him and was like, hey, what do you think of this deal? I didn't ask him for capital or anything because most people are like, no. So he said, great deal. What do you do for money? I said, well, I'll probably need some. He says, I'm interested. And so that's how I found the capital for that. So we do have a business partner on that one.
Talking about Brian Hammer?
Yep. Yep. Good guy.
Yeah, really good guy.
Yeah, real good guy. Yes.
So when you build, are you gonna build that Tractive type?
We're not using Tracties. So Tracties are a great company. They're expensive. They are expensive, and their lead time to get the building is so long right now because they're one of the, seen as one of the top guys in the industry. It's 4 to 6 months to get your darn building. So I found a company out of Georgia who customer service is awesome. I could call Dustin right now, the rep, and he would probably take my phone call. And the building's going to be $3 per square foot cheaper, which is a big deal. And the buildings are great quality. You would think, well, that much cheaper, the buildings are going to suck. But I know an owner out in Mecosta, which is between Big Rapids and Mount Pleasant, and he's putting up these buildings. It's called Peak Steel. And myself and my general contractor went out there and checked them out, and they're very, very good buildings.
Similar construction when the screws aren't through the roof.
Well, so that's a choice actually. You can choose. Screw down roofs are cheaper than standing seam, but you have the option to go with whichever one you want as an owner. So I would go standing seam all the time, 'cause that way you're not worrying about roof leaks down the road.
And you say you can do that for $25 a foot, or?
No, so it depends too. Generally, if you're going to have somebody GC it for you, everything like that, it's going to be $45 a square foot. If you do it yourself and you own a piece of land and you're you're GCing the project yourself, and you have buddies who do concrete and fence and all that, you can get the price down quite a bit. But if you're going to have somebody else do it, be hands off, it's generally $45 a square foot for non-climate control. Higher if you have to do underground stormwater storage domes, which we have to do at our place because we don't have we don't have room for a retention pond or anything like that.
When you raised the rates, you just shoot people an email, or how'd you communicate that?
So with the first one, we did we mailed them out a letter because we didn't have everybody's email addresses or anything yet. But now when we do it, we can in our system we can set it up to where once a year or whatever time frame we want to, it'll send them out an email, say, hey, your rate's going to raise, whatever it is. That's the thing with storage. I mean, you can raise rates, a couple bucks here or there, and people aren't going to, get a U-Haul on a Saturday, come move their stuff out. A couple bucks is not a big deal for them. And what we raised them just below what the market rate was. Because then they search the market and see, hey, we're still paying less, and they had been paying below market rate for I don't know how many years before we bought it, so they were getting a really good deal.
What's the typical payment mechanism? Credit card, ACH?
We can do a credit card, ACH, or debit card. We don't accept cash or money orders.
Is there like a common theme or not really?
Not really. I mean, it's kind of all over. So we do have inherited customers that we still will take their cash or check because that's the way they've been doing it for forever. So we're not going to change that on them. But any new customers are credit or debit card. And because we found this out from recent experience, deviating from our processes and taking cash and two customers taking cash and money order from respectively. And we found that those customers more likely than not end up in the auction process. And we don't have a credit card on file to be able to run it to get our rent.
Once someone moves out, how long does that unit usually remain vacant? And then also, do you have a wait list
We have a wait list, yeah, right now. So generally, it's not waiting to yeah, yeah, which is why we're adding the buildings.
Does the $45 a square foot, is that include paving between the buildings?
Yep. So that's everything. That's the paving, the fence. If you need, generally, if you need a new gate operator, your concrete, your building, your sign out by the road. It's all encompassing, and it's just a general rule of thumb because you can get into doing your engineering and site work, site plan, and say, hey, this is going to cost a little bit more. Like with us, we didn't have room for retention, so storing the water underground costs a lot, unfortunately.
Do you plow snow all the time, or do you?
I think we plowed last year 10 to 15 times, something like that. So we didn't have to plow too much. We put in our lease that we're not going to plow if the snow is 3 inches or less, because I mean it's winter time. Hardly any people are going to their storage unit. So if it's more than that, we're out there plowing and we're salting and making sure it's safe for people, though.
So you don't wait until somebody says, I want to get unit 34, can you plow me out? Or
Nope. Well, just that if it's 3 inches or more, we're out there plowing to make sure. And that's run us $150, $200 to do that. Good questions, guys. All right, we're going to move on here, and we'll save other questions here for later. So this is a new project we're working on. Wanted to show you guys. This is just a rendering of it. It'll probably change, but this is in Milan, Michigan. So we're looking at adding 6 buildings, 48,000 square foot total project size once we were done with it. And I discovered this market because at a prior job I drove through there all the time. I'm like, hey, what's Milan? Let me stop out and check it out. And it's a nice little town. It reminds me of DeWitt a little bit. And there's only one storage facility in a 5-mile radius, and he's full. And he's getting $110 for a 10x10 non-climate control. And there's potential market demand for 60,000 square feet. So I say, okay, I'm gonna look into this. And so I did, and we found a parcel of land, 3.2 acres, zoned by right for self-storage for $98,000. So, and it's pretty much flat. It's 800 feet long, and there's only a 2-foot grade change throughout the whole thing. So it's pretty nice parcel. It happens to be right across the street from the other facility in the market. But it's the parcel that is on the main road to enter the industrial complex, so everybody's gonna see us first. And we actually met with the owner at our site plan approval a couple weeks ago, and he was a nice guy about it. And I'm like, you're gonna be just fine. People aren't gonna move their stuff out of your place to come to my place for the same price or near the same price. So a lot of people worry about that with new facilities going up, but people don't just generally move out just because a new person went in. That's not going to happen. But now might people want to move into our place because it's brand new and we have climate control? Probably, but the other owner will be just fine because there's good demand in the market still, so there's enough for everybody.
Did you calculate that off population? Or how
That's generally, there's a rule of thumb.
Yep.
Again, rules of thumb, it's generally 7 to 8 square foot per person is what your equilibrium is. So if there's 10,000 people in whatever radius you're using, there's potential demand for 70 to 80,000 square feet. So anything under is undersupplied, anything over is oversupplied. So no climate control in this market, and given where rates are, we can get a 25 to 50% premium over that for climate control, and get very, very good rates. So we're going to do 2 to 3 phases. Phase 1 is going to be 14,000 square foot, a net rentable square feet, and phase 2 will be the next 2 buildings, and then phase 3 will be the next 2 buildings. And you do that for lease up risk, because you don't want to build out 50,000 square foot of building and just have it sit there for 2 years. So you do it in phases and get 70 to 80% full on your first phase, and then start the next phase. And you do boat and RV storage in between phases, so you have income coming in as well. So it's not just sitting there. So it's going to be a great project for us. Go ahead.
So what happens when you have boat and RV storage there and you keep adding and reducing that, you just start leaving because there's no more space for them? For the boat and RV because you're taking up space?
Yeah. They'll find someplace else, and we'll let them know in advance. Hey, we need you out. Any other questions on the Mylan project? I just wanted to hit on that real quick.
Are you looking at any other, have you had any other, acquisitions that you're kind of analyzing?
It's prices are pretty high right now in self-storage. It's a pretty hot class. Gosh, I looked at a package in Allendale same facility, but they had a main location and an annex location, and they had it listed at 4.1 million, and it was 4.1 million, and the most I would have paid for that was 2.3. The prices are ridiculous. Looked at a package in Lapeer, and they were over list by 800,000 for my underwriting. And talked to the broker and like, oh, we got multiple offers that $400,000 or $500,000 higher. I said, that's great, they can have that. And then when they're not doing well, I'll purchase it for a better price a couple years down the road.
What are the market caps on those?
Depends on the market. So like a Lapeer, it's gonna be 8 cap or higher. My place, once we have the square footage increased, because that factors into it as well, I anticipate being a 7.5 cap at least. I'm hoping for a 7.
Can you remind everybody what cap rate represents?
Yeah, cap rate is essentially the return you would get if you paid all cash for a property. That's essentially what your return would be. And so for valuation purposes, that's what investors look at. There's some weight you want to place on that just because that's what banks are looking at, but I'm more worried about cash on cash return and things like that. So the return on your cash that you're investing in the property. So if it's a $100,000 property, and you're putting 20% down, what's my return on that $20,000 based on the cash flow that's left over at the end of the year? So I wanted to hit on storage facility valuation too, so we can talk about a little bit about that. So in storage, you have your gross potential rent, which is just your the amount of rent that you could possibly get based on what your rates are. So I use $100,000 here to help make it a little easier. And so from there, you're going to have discounts, credits, bad debt. And that percentage is going to be different depending on where you're at with your property. If you're in lease up, that percentage is going to be higher because you're going to be given discounts to help entice people to move in to the property, because they're going to stay an average of 13 months, right? So you're more than happy to give them a free month to have them stay 12 more months paying full rate. And they might even stay longer than that. So I generally use 3%. That's just what we've seen on our property. We do a very good job. Well, my wife does because she handles the phone calls from the customers. Does a very good job of getting people to pay and reminding them that they're late and things like that. So from there, you'll get your effective gross income, which is what you're actually bringing in to the property. Now expenses. Here's another great thing about storage. Is that the expenses are typically 30 to 45% of your effective gross income. Whereas, on other asset classes, it could be much higher. Apartments, 50%, 60%. It can get pretty significant. So I think we're running at a 33% on our facility right now. So we keep them pretty minimal. And that's with maintaining everything. That's not, skimping out on, keeping up on any maintenance that has to happen. The lawn's mowed, if anybody backs to a building, that's fixed. And it's nice. So from there, you get your net operating income. So that's after all your discounts and all your expenses are factored in. And how you get the valuation of a facility is you take that cap rate and you divide it into the net operating income, and that's going to get you your value of your facility. Any questions on that stuff or any type of expenses?
Calculating the 4.3 million, you're only going to pay 2 or whatever. Like, what cap rate were you using?
Oh, I must have done that. That was a while ago. I think where that one was at, I would have been willing to pay an 8 cap on it. Yeah, they had just added 3 new buildings that weren't leased up yet, and they had additional land, so they were trying to get a ton of value for that. It's like there's value in having buildings put up and all the entitlements done, but not that much value to where you're gonna way overpay. And the rates were decent, and but there wasn't much upside for the rates in the market. Even with the new buildings, you wouldn't have been able to increase rates that much. So it would have been a pretty tight deal, really any more than what I was willing to pay.
For the DeWitt facility, how did you bond with the owners, or the sellers? They're 70 years old. How did you get them to connect with you to sell?
Well, the prior owner was bald, so that helps. It does. It's true. I mean, it's funny, but it's true. And I think it helped because I think I brought my wife with. I mean, honestly, if I hadn't brought her, I don't know if we would have gotten the deal because, him and his wife ran the property and did it together. And so I brought my wife and said, hey, we're doing this together, and we both bonded with them. And without that, I don't know if we would have gotten it. If it would have just been me, they would have been like, I don't know.
And then the other question I had was, did they push back on your 1.3, or what did you come in at?
They wanted 1.5. I came in at 1.2, and they said, what about 1.3? I said, done. I probably would have paid the 1.5, but we didn't need to. Yeah. Any other questions? Yeah.
On your expenses, when you're calculating the cap rate, does not include debt service, correct?
No. I didn't put debt service in there because that's going to be completely different. Debt service is after your net operating income. And then what's left over, I guess I should have just as an example, David. And so you have your net operating income and debt service, and then what's left over afterwards is your cash flow. So that's what you can put in your pocket. And then that's what you would use to calculate your cash on cash return. So if you put 10 grand into a property and you have $1,000 in cash flow left over at the end of the year, that's a 10% cash on cash return. All right. Any other questions on valuation?
Are there any sources that you use for your cap rates?
I have a couple brokers I know. I have appraisers, self-storage specific appraisers I know, and one that gave me a nice sheet of how he kind of looks at things. So that's what I look at. All right, general overview, why storage is awesome. Lots of opportunity, like I said. A lot of mom and pop owners reaching retirement age. The big thing with them, like Mike pointed out, building a relationship with those people. Because with storage, if you purchase it correct, you can have just one facility, and the cash flow can be very, very good. And you can, depending on your lifestyle, you could live off just that if you choose to. But it's building the relationship with those people because they're not just going to sell to anybody. Some of them don't want to sell to a large corporation because they don't like large businesses. They want to sell to somebody that they know and have a relationship with. No landlord-tenant laws, like in apartments, duplexes, rentals, which is what I really like, being able to auction units off and not have destroyed apartment units and things like that. And the lower expense ratio, like we talked about, 30 to 45% expense ratio, whereas other asset classes can be much higher. And recession resistant. Again, lowest default rate in the downturn. People buy stuff when times are good. They downsize when times are not so good, and they need storage for other situations. And people are out moving all the time in general. So we are looking for passive investors. If anybody wants to talk about that, would love to chat with people about that.
What would a passive investor deal look like?
As far as returns?
Yeah.
Well, I can't give you specific returns because range it. That could be.
Do you offer a preferred return?
We do have a preferred return. 8% preferred return is what we generally look to do, and we target 15 to 20% average annual return. That's our target.
Are there minimum, I'm just thinking about people moving, they needed their unit for 2 or 3 months while their house is getting ready, or between houses?
Month to month.
Everything's month to month?
Everything's month to month. Yep. Creates flexibility for everybody.
Sure.
Any other questions? You guys had some great questions.
Is there any reason you evict people outside of not paying?
No. I mean, unless you, Definitely not. Because that's where it's not like apartments. If nobody's gonna be blasting their music or, fixing cars in their parking in their driveway. You're doing anything like that. So outside of discovering that they're storing gasoline or working on cars out of it, or they have a meth lab in there, you as long as they're paying, no reason to kick them out.
Can you inspect the unit anytime? Is there any law against that, or?
Inspect it anytime.
If you, for somebody's coming 3 times a week and you think something's going on.
Unless we got something on camera, which is why you have the cameras there, it would be kind of tough to. Or if you smell something, that would give you reason to maybe go in there. But if somebody's just coming there a lot, and otherwise you don't see anything, don't have anything on camera, it'd be pretty tough to say, hey, we want your unit. Situation where we can get in their unit with proper notices to fix things, like if something happens to the roof, get a hold of them. And we have tenants who have opened doors and the springs end up breaking on them, because that happens. And we say, okay, we need to, on this date, can you be there? We'll have the door company out to fix that. But the customer stays there the entire time, because we don't want a situation where they say the contractor stole something or broke something.
What were you looking at with the partner that you partnered with on the one? Ownership or percentage of the return, or just a interest rate?
As far as what return I get?
Your down payment, guy.
So down payment was $260,000 on the property, so it's 20% on that.
I thought someone over here mentioned you partnered with somebody. I was just curious.
With how the ownership broke down?
Yeah, if you wanted to share.
Yeah, I don't mind sharing. There's no secrets in real estate. Everything can be found. So I got 30% of the deal. My partner has 20, and then our investor group has 50. And that's pretty typical of deals in general. Is that general partners will get 50%, the silent investors will get 50%.
So that deal is syndication.
Yeah, Brian handled all that.
Okay.
Yeah, he's done it. He's done it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? All right, that's it. I deal with metal, so I think I'm Iron Man. So nice sharing that with you. Appreciate all the questions. I have business cards to hand out to people if you guys want it, and my contact information is there. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cool. Tim, you want to stay up for a second?
Yeah, sure.
So I didn't prepare another small set of slides, but there are self-storage investment funds.
Yes, I can talk about that.
Sure.
So, I have certain properties I'm looking at, but there are great investor funds out there where it's larger operators who will offer the similar returns that I talked about: 8% preferred, 15 to 20% average annual return. There's a couple that I know of, and they're really good operators. More than happy to share that with people as well, because there's more. There's no reason you can't be in multiple different avenues to try to make a good return on your money and diversify a little bit. So more than happy to share that with anybody who wants to know them.
Okay. Well, if there's not any other questions for Tim or me, Dave.
What about tax benefits for, if there are any benefits from taxation as far as doing cost segregation studies to take, accelerated depreciation, those sorts of things?
For sure, yeah, you can do cost. I'm not a CPA, by the way, but you can do cost segregation stuff. And and what's cool about that is you can, from what my CPA has told me, is that you can go back to prior years if you weren't, if you didn't start 2 years ago, you can go back and kind of make up for that. So you can do it for self-storage as well.
I know when we had talked about mobile home parks a little while back, they had mentioned that cities aren't too fond of zoning for mobile home parks. How does that go for self-storage? Are they pretty happy with you?
It depends on the municipality. So a lot of larger operators I know of where they've paid $1 million for an acre and a half. They're specifically buying it somewhere where it's not zoned for self-storage, and they know they're going to have a battle. and they might not win it, but if they do win it, they're in a great location, and so it's worth doing that. But if you can make it look nice and present a good project to the city, you're going to bring in tax dollars, and maybe you do some mixed use where you're doing some office retail up front, or maybe a Starbucks or something like that. Municipalities are like that type of stuff. As I saw a project a couple years ago where they did some office space below, self-storage above and behind, and had some apartments as well.
What's the smallest one that you looked at out of your 50?
Well, I didn't get a hold of all 50 of those owners when I called them. Probably 60 units, because you can create the same efficiencies there, and the cost is pretty low, and if the rates are good enough. Those small facilities like that are generally like on the outskirts of places. And I know one in DeWitt, actually, right up the road. The guy's name is Jeremy. He's a UPS driver. He closed a week before I did, so he beat me to it. He bought a place that was, I think it was 50 units when he bought it. And he put in portable units in his whole place, and he's up to 80 units now. And he's full, and he's great. Him and his wife are perfectly fine with that. So there's a ton of those out there to find and buy, and get good return on those ones.
How far north did you go?
As far as looking, I do the whole state of Michigan, minus the UP. It's too cold up there.
What's your time commitment for the management of your facility?
5 hours a week, maybe, to sweep out units, call people for payments, lease units if somebody calls in directly to the phone number, and just make sure all the numbers are good and everything like that. That'll increase when we're putting up the new buildings, and then we'll go back down, but it's not too much. That's for our facility. If, like I said, if you have a Class A facility, multi-story, climate control, you're selling all the products you haul, it makes sense to have a part-time or at least a full-time or at least a part-time manager in that situation, because you're getting higher dollars coming in.
I might have missed it at the beginning. You have a full-time job?
I did. I might be starting another one, but when I found this facility, I did have a full-time job. So it was calling owners on lunch, after work, doing stuff in the morning, analyzing deals, waking up at 5 a.m.
The plan is to do the full-time?
Yeah, at some point. It's actually my choice to go back to work to kind of help with our overall plan, and transition my wife. She nannies as well as manages the facility, and so we're going to have her transition to the role of calling owners and doing things like that, sending out our letters and finding other opportunities. Awesome. Thanks for the questions, guys. Those were great questions. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight, and hope to see you August 28th. If you want to book, send me an email with your address. Thank you very much.